This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about what I'm calling Fort Nakamoto. It's time for the U.S. government and the U.S. central bank to buy Bitcoin. The background for this is we see the context where China banned Bitcoin, and we all know the reason China banned Bitcoin. It wasn't because of the energy usage or something like that, but it's because of the freedom to route around the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, that Bitcoin provides. It's very hard to have capital controls. It's hard to have social credit scores and control when you have a decentralized currency that a lot of people are using. So this is why China kicked out the miners, kicked out the exchanges, and banned all the banks from using Bitcoin. This was a huge strategic error on China's part. It's a little bit like banning any other new technology. You can ban a new technology, but then just your competitors end up using it. Dan Moorhead from Pantera Capital has a great tweet about this, talking about the returns on various stocks and assets since China banned them. Twitter, Facebook, Google, Snapchat, and of course Bitcoin has been banned many times. This is one of the great ironies, of course. They banned Google once. Very easy to ban because it's a centralized server. You just block all the traffic coming from Google. Much more difficult to ban Bitcoin, which is why they have to keep banning it. So that's the basic background. This video is based on a tweet by Blake Masters, who is currently the president of the Thiel Foundation. Peter Thiel, the technologist from Silicon Valley, who I used to work for. Blake Masters is also COO, Chief Operating Officer of Thiel Capital, and he is running for U.S. Senate, I believe in Arizona. So here's his tweet. China banned cryptocurrency last week. Let's do the opposite. The U.S. government should buy a strategic reserve of Bitcoin. And then he's got this great pun, Fort Nakamoto versus Fort Knox. Meanwhile, his Senate campaign is accepting Bitcoin donations. For those of you who don't know, Fort Knox is where the U.S. government holds its reserves of gold. There are lots of conspiracy theories that it's empty, that there's not gold in there. I don't really know whether that's true or not. I assume the gold is there. It doesn't really matter since gold is being displaced by Bitcoin anyway. But this is Fort Knox, and what Blake is suggesting is that we create Fort Nakamoto. Really great. It's a pretty good meme, I have to say. This is interesting in the context, of course, of Blake Masters running for Senate in Arizona in 2022. For those of you who haven't read his notes, he took a class with Peter Thiel that he was teaching at the law school at Stanford, and he published these notes online. I'll link to them. Very interesting stuff about startups, competition, the flows of money, etc. And this was later edited into a book called 0 to 1, which is a wonderful book as well. But if you want the free version, kind of the longer version, you can click on this link. The important point here is to point out that Bitcoiners are coming to Congress. And it's interesting to note as well that Peter Thiel is financing a lot of these people, Blake Masters, as well as J.D. Vance, who wrote the famous book Hellbelly Elegy. He is also he's running for Senate out of Ohio to succeed Rob Portman. And so we have all these Bitcoiners coming to Congress. J.D. Vance has made many statements showing that he does support Bitcoin as well, and he was against the Portman Amendment. This is Peter Thiel, who's funding, as we said, these people. And so if both of these candidates are elected, we will have at least 3 Bitcoiners in the Senate. We already have Cynthia Lummis out of Wyoming. And I think this trend just continues as the Congress, as the House of Representatives and the Senate begin to age out. We have so many senile, elderly senators, and they're slowly being replaced by Bitcoiners. This is one reason Bitcoin will never, ever be banned in the U.S. So here's the proposal as I would see it based on Blake Masters' tweet. The proposed budget, Biden's budget for fiscal year 2022 in the U.S. is approximately $6 trillion. Absolutely insane, since you can only collect taxes for about half of that, which means it's going to add $3 trillion in debt every year to the U.S. debt. But apart from that, let's say we sliced out just a tiny part of this budget and we used it for the federal government to buy Bitcoin. So instead of using 10% of it, let's just say 1%, and that would be, I believe, 60 billion. The current market cap of Bitcoin is about 900 billion, 905 billion now, with Bitcoin trading above 48,000. It would be very difficult to put on 60 billion, but maybe something a little bit less than that. The government would have to slowly move into it. If the US government did this, Bitcoin would immediately move into the hundreds of thousands, probably the high hundreds of thousands, just because of the liquidity of this, as well as the signaling to other governments that there's now an arms race. It's an arms race not to develop nuclear weapons. It's not a race to get to the moon. It's a race to corner a very rare commodity, which is Bitcoin, just as we've had a global race to try to control oil and other energy supplies like natural gas. And so if this were to happen, it would obviously be tremendous for Bitcoin. I think it would also be tremendous for the US as we continue to devalue our US dollar and do all this monkey business at the Fed. If we could just take a small amount of that budget that's being basically monetized by the Fed and use it to buy Bitcoin, I think it would give the US a huge strategic advantage. And as I said, nation states since the beginning of time have been, or at least since the beginning of nation states or kingdoms, have been in the habit of stockpiling gold, crude oil, corn, wheat, etc. This is what it's prudent to do with scarce commodities. We're printing a lot of US dollars. There's so much garbage in the $6 trillion budget, so much of it going to rent seekers and bureaucrats and people who contribute nothing to the world. And in the process, we're missing out on this opportunity to do the opposite of what China has done. They banned Bitcoin. We should embrace Bitcoin wholeheartedly. And it just makes common sense to start to stockpile something that has a chance of becoming the new global reserve asset. We went from gold being this to US treasuries being this, and in the next incarnation, it's very, very likely, I believe, that Bitcoin will be this new reserve asset that's held by governments and central banks worldwide. This is the original Satoshi quote. Makes a lot of sense. It might make sense just to get some Bitcoin in case it catches on. If enough people think the same way, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is what he said, I believe, in 2009 or 2010. And this applies not just to people, but to central banks and governments. It might just make sense to buy some before, obviously, the El Salvador government has begun to accumulate Bitcoin and put it on the sovereign balance sheet. It really would make sense. It'd be amazing if the US could wake up and do something like this. And then, of course, we have the money printers. We still have the world reserve currency, though we're rapidly losing that and losing the faith and trust of the world in our money because we're devaluing it so rapidly. But the first central bank that prints a lot of money and uses it to buy Bitcoin wins. We're printing trillions of dollars a year. Why not use that money? Why not use just a fraction of it to buy Bitcoin as a prudent move to diversify the holdings of the Fed, to diversify the assets held by the U.S. federal government? And if the U.S. federal government can't get its act together, it would be great to see states like Wyoming or Florida or Texas or some of these sort of states buy some Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheets as well. This is where the puck is moving, and investing, if you want to make money, you have to not focus on where the puck has been. We're using the Wayne Gretzky hockey analogy here. You have to focus not where the puck has been, but to where the puck is moving, and it is moving to Bitcoin globally. We've had a sovereign nation, El Salvador, adopt Bitcoin as its standard, and this is what the rest of the next decade is going to look like. The dominoes are falling. One country after another will eventually get into this Bitcoin race, and when it happens, it's going to be like the race to the moon or the nuclear arms race. It's going to be done in a very fast and furious manner, and the price of Bitcoin, this is how we easily go from 5 figures to 6 figures, and then 7 and 8 figures. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.